Welcome back, friends. Welcome back to the homestead. Leipni Atkpakal Draugi Tere. I thought I would do a longer form video on the main vegetable garden. We've been doing this system now for, if you want to call it a system, this Nodig market garden style permanent bed vegetable garden. This is our third year, so I thought I'd just spend some time specifically in the garden rather than a general garden tour of all of our property, just here, and talk about what's going on here. For context, if you're just watching this video, it's the first video watching, we're in North Latvia, 58 degrees north, not far from the Estonian border. Our climate is it's difficult to describe, but basically it's about -25 centigrade, it's -15 Fahrenheit in the winter, and then we've had +32 last week centigrade. So you know, there's a big temperature differential, some extreme conditions we have to cope with, probably about zone 5 for our American viewers. What you might think of as a short growing season, especially if you don't have permanent beds, but we've been doing a lot to extend that and grow more food. So anyway, I'll share some thoughts with you, some notes about what's going on here, some lessons we've learnt, some things that haven't worked, some things that have worked. I mean, generally everything works well. We have some success stories and some abject failures as well. So this is the bottom end of the garden. We're on a very gradual slope here. Water can run this way. We've got 20. Our beds are all equidistant. They're all the same size. So 10 meters long, 75 centimeters wide. We've got 7 beds, 3 rows of 7 beds here. 1, 2, 3, and then at the top we have some beds that run horizontal rather than vertically, to stop the rain, to stop the water coming off the field. And yeah, so quite a few beds, and we have 2 very long roost out method potato beds, which obviously is a slightly different system to everything else. We don't produce enough compost to do full no dig, but we're working on it. So what have we got going on at the moment? I mean, this time of year, late July, is I think the best time to show off the garden, because we've just started harvesting stuff, and so you know, not too much is dying off or whatever, and we're planting the next succession into autumn. You might notice we haven't got a fence at the moment, but there will be a fence in the next few weeks to stop the deer. Don't have a lot of animal pressure apart from insects during the summer. So very quickly, I tend to have the first bed as you come in always tends to be herbs and cut flowers, just more for presentation really, and obviously herbs the nearest to the kitchen. You know, we don't, it's difficult to follow. Well, we're about 30 meters from the house, so if you're into the permaculture zones thing, I don't really follow that. So yeah, so herbs, cut flowers, rudbeckia, sunflower, frilled poppies, some other bits and pieces, parsley and coriander. Got some Swedes here, rutabaga for our American friends, Karlis in Latvian. Es jārunā vairāk latviski. Es varu runāt latviski, bet protams angliski ir vieglāk. Welsh onions, mangolds, leaf beets. What do we call them in English? I'm forgetting the name. Swiss chard. Celery. Celery likes to be wet. You know, celery comes from a swamp, so it likes to be kept wet. Obviously these are for keep them in the basement during summer. Here's one of our failures. Well, failures that became a success. these are turnips planted early, absolutely torn to bits by flea beetles and some other insects, but actually they worked as a really nice sacrificial crop. I don't like to waste space, but if a sacrificial crop can stop other things being killed or dying, then that's a good use of space, really. We've got more turnips planted. Ratsini, I think, is turnips. Can't remember now. In Latvian. Cabbages under butterfly-proof netting. Red cabbages are starting to bring in heads. Not overly impressive. Cauliflowers. Puukikarposts. I managed to grow, amazingly, which is good. Now, one of the big problems we have here, this is why we have a big gap, is ants. I don't know why, but ants attack the broccoli plants. They attack brassicas. Answers on a postcard as to why specifically. That's in English, Anglo-Tattians. If anyone knows why they attack brassicas, I'd love to know. When they're young. So broccoli, calabrese, just coming ready to harvest. Red Russian kale, beets, multi-sown beets. You don't need to, in Latvia, don't listen to anyone who says you can only plant beets one at a time. You can multi-sow them, 3s and 4s, and you pick them out slowly and they'll grow, become bigger. This has all been freshly sown. I direct sowed some bits and pieces. I think pak choys, radish, pak choys and turnips. Don't direct sow a lot here. We tend to do all transplants, but at this time of year I'm just using up space. Parsnips, which we love in the UK, pastanaki, latviski. In Latvia, interesting, they sell them in singles wrapped in plastic, which we find really funny. And they're used just to sort of as a herb. They're grated into soups and stuff like that, which is, yeah, interesting. We've harvested a lot of kale already. That's why it's looking a bit ragged. And we're just, the cabbage butterflies will do a bit to it, and then not had a lot of pressure this year, which is good. And then we'll harvest more later on. There's nice fresh leaves growing. This is a good example of this. Really nice swede coming on. They'll be ready later on to harvest. Onions. Now, onions, complete success story. I spent a lot of time researching and practicing how to grow really great onions. These are from, just for my hat, look, you can see how big they are. Now this is how we grow onions, 5 rows in a single bed, equidistant spacing, it's about 10-12 centimeters in between. And you can see it in another video, which I'll link up here, about how I did it with a tool that I've got that does all the spacing for me automatically. Not a seeder, but a much cheaper version. 450 onions here if they all come to harvest. They won't all be as big as that, but most of them will. So that's a really good harvest, really good yield from such a 7.5 square meters, which is one bed. That's a lot of onions. And we've got another one there, and these are my seed onions. In an ideal world, I would grow all my onions from seed. You'll get far better onions, and you've got far more varieties that you can play with. These are exhibition. Got some shallots here. Everything's swelling up at the moment. Multi-sown in 3s and single ones, just to experiment. These are what they're called, Moscano, an Italian onion, white sweet Spanish onions. Lovely onion they are, and some leeks and more Welsh onions. I planted the leeks a bit early, I think, but carrots. Carrots are carrots, really, aren't they? 6 varieties here, planted here, including Oxella, which is a nice big fat cylindrical carrot, famously grown by Charles Dowding. Managed to get those from Sweden, actually. Good seed supply over there in Sweden, organic one. Red onions, broad beans, tulcapulpus, we've already harvested. Get a few more on there for seed. I've got my wheat experiment over there. Yes, I'm growing wheat. We use wood chips in the walkways to give a lot of fungal activity, and you can see it does attract some weed pressure. We're not 100%. You won't see a lot of weeds here. Certainly, the weeds won't. We won't get to. They won't let them fight against the vegetables. But at this time of year, we're spinning a lot of plates. So you know, with doing the jobs that we need to do on the homestead, home improvements, caring for elderly people, doing the harvest, weeding, feeding, watering when it doesn't rain. There's a lot to do, so but I do tend to keep on the weeds. I've got some great tools that make it a lot easier for me. Second succession of beetroots, cylindrical ones, some more mangolds, and golden eye beets. They looked interesting. Technically a weed, but it's an amaranth plant. Amaranths, I think, in Latvian. Courgette Marrow, first year growing those, we often get given them. It's a bit of a joke in England that people give you marrows because they don't know what to do with them. Well, here in Latvia I've learnt what to do with them. We slice them thinly, chop chop chop, salt and pepper, quick dusting in flour, and fry them. They're absolutely delicious. They're gone in 5 minutes. They won't hang about. It's got a bit windy. So these are our beans. We've got some red kidney beans. They're called Creation. Bolotto beans, the fire tongue variety, you know, with the red and white stripes. Very nice. And those you can also treat like runner beans and slice them thinly like we do. And here we've got cannellini, yin yang, and finazi beans, which is a very fine green bean, just for keeping greens, and the rest will dry. Telephone peas, tall ones up to about 2 meters, pretty much done there. What's left is for saving seed. Next succession of ambrosia peas, pretty much done. Say we've had peas off there and kind of mange too. There's a small succession there, and then a final succession for peas. We'll put peas in other places just for shoots as well. So you can see now the beds are adjacent to the other beds, and to stop the water running through the garden, and it works pretty well. Gherkins for pickling and eating fresh. Got some to pick this morning by the look of it. There, some more, and basically now this time of year, these were sown late May, I think, and they grow slowly. And then these we sowed them early June, transplanted them, sorry, mid-June actually, transplanted them after midsummer, so the last week of June, and they catch up really quickly. You can't really tell now what's what. So we'll be pickling every few days, gherkins, and eating them fresh. Hemp, you can clearly see the male and female plants, the difference with what provides the pollen and what provides the seeds. We're growing these for seed really. We love hemp butter. A bit like peanut butter, but made from hemp. Really nice. More broad beans. This is kind of a bit of a, you thought broad beans pretty easy to grow. Barely anything. These haven't been harvested. This is just nothing on them, which is a shame. There's a few pods down there, but amaranth, grow for the seed and the leaves. You can eat as spinach. Try to have everything, something in every bed all the time. There's an empty bed there, but that's the exception, because that's how you build good soil. Soil health is all about having something planted. A few weeds down here as well I need to pull out. This is sorghum. It's a staple grain crop in many African countries, and it grows big seed heads up, you know, be about 2 meters tall. You can see them starting to form here. Makes it quite a nice black seed crop. You know, just treat it like you would any other grain, really, or, you know, rice. And this final bed last year, if you remember, if you're regular viewers, or if you knew that we grew butternut squash here, had a rethink on squash this year, because they sprawl everywhere and they don't really work with the system that I want to use. So we've taken them outside. I'll talk about that in a minute. This is my Slava Ukraini, you know, nice sunflowers, bit of a nod to say we stand with Ukraine, and as people drive down our road they should see lots of nice sunflowers. This is popcorn, bit of an experiment. I'm going to talk about experiments in another video. I love experimenting. It's how you grow better food. Some Welsh onions gone to seed there. I need to find out what to do with them. Well, I know what to do with seeds, but what do we do with Welsh onions? Yeah, so sorry, that was really quick. Ish. So you've seen some success stories, what's worked and what's not worked. You can see the way, you know, perhaps the... Oh, buckwheat. I've grown some buckwheat. Fantastic for pollinators. Deliberately grown it, with the exception of the wheat. With the exception of the wheat, as far across as I can, because we've got bees over there, and I want them to come across where we need the pollinators, on the peas, on the beans, on the gherkins. Yeah. So that's very strategic placement. I can see bees on there at the moment. Got these leeks have gone to seed, so the bees love those as well. Oh, here's a good example of something that's not worked. Germination on these has been poor. I still direct sow beans, bush beans. I might switch to transplanting next year. Don't know. But we'll fill that space with some more peas. We'll fill it with some dill, which is a herb which grows, Latvians grow in abundance here. Beautiful, isn't it? The griki in Latvian, buckwheat. Just picked a few seeds off the field up there and planted them this year. So yeah, let's just very quickly talk about the pumpkins. So I did cover this in another video, which I'll link to up here. So rather than have pumpkins in a, you know, a space which is about growing efficiently and as tightly as possible, let them just sprawl wherever they want. And so that's what I decided to do. And I dug some big pits and filled them with cow manure and compost and ash, all the stuff, all the nutrients and minerals that pumpkins and squashes need to survive and thrive. And now they're sprawling out. Leaves are looking a little yellow in the middle, but once the roots get down to all the goodness that's underneath the big pit, then, you know, the new leaves are all green, so it's fine. We should have some nice fruit off those. And there's about eight across here. Yeah, so 3 years on, really happy with the system. Still exploring how we can make it better. You know, there's a difference between a weed-free garden and the appearance of a weed-free garden. There's no such thing as a weed-free garden, but we try to have the appearance of one. We get a lot of pressure along the sides of the beds. That's where you get the most pressure, because there's nothing growing in it and it's not weeded. And this is more of a living path here. Yeah, so I hope you found that interesting. If you've got any questions, just do leave them below. I'll probably give some more thought to what what I've learned from growing. This is kind of just a walk and talk tour, really. All the fertilizer this year has been homemade. Again, I've got that in a video. I'll cover up here. So I've been trying to close the loop so we can provide our own fertilization rather than buying. Up until this year, we've been using fish flour. That's the literal translation from Latvian to English. Zivimilti, fish meal. But with the price of fertilizer going up, it's just not economically viable for us to use it. So nature provides all that you need to make great fertilizer. So I'm taking full advantage of that, and we'll be covering that in future videos. Yeah, I think that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it useful and inspiring. And if you've got any questions, please do leave them in the comments below. I do read all the comments and I answer them. And yeah, I just need to say goodbye, I suppose. Ata, ciao. And I'll see you in another video very soon. Oh, give us a thumbs up if you like the video.